Welcome to the Business of Apparel podcast. This is the place to learn how to start and scale your own apparel brand and fill it with loyal customers for years to come. I'm your host, Rachel Erickson, owner and CEO of unmarkedstreet, and I can't wait to share this episode with you. Welcome back to the Business of Apparel podcast. In last week's episode, we had Kelly Roach join me, who is one of my mentors and business coaches. I've been working with her for the last couple of years. And when I was listening to her podcast, The Kelly Roach Show, she was talking a lot about how she got her apparel line made, the Courageous brand. If you haven't gone back and listened to that episode, it is a really good one because very rarely do I get the chance to talk to people who have been in this situation. They have started with nothing, including very little knowledge about how the apparel industry works, made it through, put in all of the funding, put in all of the timing, and now they have an apparel line that they're out there selling. They know they're in it for the long game. They learned all the lessons that they've learned, and this is coming from someone who is genuinely a master at business. Like Kelly has built and grown multiple 7- and 8-figure companies. And so she is a leader in the entrepreneurial space. So to be listening to her talk about how to build an apparel line from her perspective, I think is incredibly interesting. And all that she learned and everything that surprised her along the way, I think was really important. So again, head back toward the last week's episode. If you haven't listened to it yet, it might be really valuable for you to learn from what Kelly was talking about, some of her mistakes were and some of the learnings were. As we move forward into today's episode, I really wanted to expand on a small conversation that she and I started to have. And if you've also listened to the Andrew Jagola episodes where he and I talked for a 2-part episode back in December of 2023, we really started to talk about how much it costs to build your apparel brand from scratch. And again, I just want to reiterate that we're not necessarily talking about merchandising. This is what we call merchandising in the apparel space or in the apparel industry, which basically means going out to a screen print facility or going to an embroidery facility, purchasing blanks or purchasing white label options, purchasing drop ship options for them, and then putting your logo on it or screen printing something on it, and then getting your product out to the market that way. You know, Kelly had a really great point last week. She was talking about this could be a great way to kind of vet out your idea. If you have an idea for an apparel brand and you want to make t-shirts, leggings, and hoodies, but you're not 100% sure if that's what your customers are going to like, or you don't know what kind of graphics your customer is going to like, or you don't know what kind of colors your customer is going to like, it could be a really good idea to start with a drop shipping business, start with a white label business, start with blanks, start with a merchandising line to get some colors, get some graphics, get some styles in front of your ideal customer base to see what resonates with them. And that was a really interesting point that I hadn't really touched on before. You know, we tend to separate merchandising from custom apparel development at unmarkedstreet and at the Business of Apparel quite a bit. But I think that point was really valid. It's a really good way to make sure. You know, if you listen to the Deb Boulanger interview that I did not too long ago, she also talked about making sure that you have a product that people want. If you go out there and you start a business that people aren't going to resonate toward because they don't want what you're actually offering, or you're constantly having to convince everybody, you know, this is the greatest thing out there. You want to be able to put a product forward that they already want. They already are looking for. It's something that you're filling a gap of. And so if you don't know that about your customer yet, doing a drop ship, doing a merchandising line could be a great way to just get the ideas out in front of your customers, test what is going to work really well for your brand, while you are then working on the custom developments. And so that is what we say when we talk about merchandising. It's not really something that we do a ton of at unmarkedstreet. We can absolutely help you with connecting with merchandising places. But at the end of the day, the apparel is already developed. The blanks are already there. The fit is already figured out. So what we are experts in the way of performance apparel fitting and fitting for a body in motion doesn't necessarily become so needed when it comes to merchandising or doing a line like that. So Kelly last week was talking a lot about building a proprietary custom apparel line from scratch. Like they wanted to have sustainable materials. They wanted to source their own materials. A lot of clients that I talk to are really keen on having their own color palette. And if they're choosing from a color card of blank t-shirts, the colors that they want aren't always included in there. And so they want to be able to develop from scratch so that they can have their own color palette. And these are important things to consider when you're starting to think about how to develop your line. And one thing, again, that keeps coming up is how much does it cost to develop a custom apparel line, something from scratch? You know, I've got this idea in my head. I've got this color palette in my head. I've got these silhouettes that I don't think are out there. And I think an ideal customer of mine would really want them. If you are looking to do something like that, this is where Unmarked Street and the business of apparel, we are experts in this kind of development. And so what I've put together for you today is a little bit of a spreadsheet on what it would cost for you to develop a line like this. Now, I'm going to go through a couple different scenarios. And what I want to first say is there is a cost to not hiring the best help that you can. When it comes to apparel development, or when it comes to really any product development and design, having someone on your side, having someone on your team who really knows what they're doing, has been in the industry for a long time, someone who maybe has a degree in industrial design or fashion design or digital design or graphic design, depending on what it is that you're wanting to create, can be one of the best decisions for you to make up front. Because as entrepreneurs, one of the things we really need to admit to ourselves right off the bat is that we don't know what we don't know. So when I started Unmarked Street, like I don't know a damn thing about sales and marketing. Like, let's just be real. I am learning every single day as much as I can about sales and marketing and branding and social media and all of these other parts that are super crucial to running an online business. But, you know, I can make apparel in my sleep. I can make product. If you woke me up at 2 a.m. tonight and said, hey, can you run a fitting for me? I would groggily wake up and I would run the best fitting for you that you've ever had. That's where my talent lies. And so each of us have a talent like that, but it is important for us to understand and admit to each other and admit to ourselves, most importantly, that we don't know what we don't know. And so if you are out there, you want to build an apparel line and you think you can do it yourself, but you don't have an apparel background, the first piece of advice that I'm absolutely going to give you is that if you can figure out how to hire the best in the business at building apparel from scratch, you are going to take months off of your timeline. You are going to take dollars off of your budget. And the reason that is because a professional, like let's say you hire me to come in and help you with your apparel development. I've been fitting garments for years. Apparel just speaks to me when it's on the body. I know what needs to be done to make sure that it fits a body in motion properly. So instead of you having to go through 6, 7, 8 prototypes with your factory, I'm going to get it done for you in 2. Because I'm an expert at it. I know exactly what I'm doing. So when you're talking about development fees, maybe your factory is charging you, 2x FOB price for development fees. That is pretty standard, especially if you're a new brand for them. So let's say your FOB is $10 a t-shirt and they're going to charge you $20 a t-shirt. I know that sounds like small money, but it adds up fast when you're talking about needing 8 of those versus 2 of those. Do you want to spend $40 on development or do you want to spend $160 on development? And again, I know these aren't like into the thousands of dollars, but all of these things add up. And so it might cost you a little bit to hire me up front, and it's going to cost you quite a bit to hire a high-end consultant and freelancer. But at the end of the day, when you really start moving things forward and the ball starts rolling for you, if you have someone on your side who knows exactly what they're doing, they're going to work you through any issues or any problems that come up with the factory, any issues that come up with quality of your garments. They are going to make sure that you don't lose any time and you don't lose any money on those types of things because they're going to handle it for you. So I will say right up front, a lot of high-end apparel consultants out there are making anywhere between $5,000 a month as a monthly retainer and $15,000 a month as a monthly retainer. And this kind of depends on how big your line is. So if you have a 75-piece apparel line and you want someone to come in and develop all of that for you from scratch, you're going to be spending quite a bit of money because there's a lot of work to do there. 75 pieces is ridiculous. If you are trying to start out and you're starting with with 75 pieces. And the only reason I'm saying this is because I've had someone come to me and propose this as an option for starting their apparel line. You will never, ever make your money back on that in a way that is significant. And you will never, ever hit the nail on the head with all 75 of those pieces. It's just way too much. You are going to be putting way too much money, way too much time, way too much effort into building this 75 piece apparel line up front, that not every piece is going to resonate with your customer. Again, we want to test and find out what our customer wants and get them the first few viable pieces so that we can allow those pieces to create profits for us, so that over time we can create this 75 piece apparel line. It's not a get rich quick scheme. Creating an apparel line is a long-term project. It is something that you should plan to put decades into. A lot of the biggest brands out there were started many, many decades ago. When you look at Adidas and Nike and the journeys that they've been on, they've been tinkering around with ideas since the 60s and 70s, maybe even earlier. And so if you are thinking about being able to launch a brand and you want to make that kind of money right away, this is maybe not the right business plan for you if that's what you're wanting. There are probably other options out there. If you are trying to get rich quick, you're trying to build a business quickly, an apparel line is something that takes a really long time to get right, to get to your customers, and to nail in the way of sales and marketing and really get those sales humming. So just want to throw that out there. But again, bringing in a high-end consultant can cost anywhere from about $5,000 to $15,000. It's going to depend on their level of knowledge. So what they can bring to the table for you, maybe how much they're charging, will depend on that. And a lot of times the apparel industry is starting to figure out that working hourly is not really the way to go. And I will say at Unmarked Street, we started with an hourly rate. And so if you had hired me back in 2021, I would have quoted you an hourly rate and we would have just, went there, and I was tracking all of my hours for you. I was billing in half-hour increments. So if I did, just 20 minutes of work, you still got billed for half an hour, but I wasn't billing you for a full hour. And over time, we started to learn that the hourly rate was really hindering us in the way of moving forward with projects. There were a couple of things that were happening. Number one, a lot of brands who hired me on hourly rate really felt like they were going to be able to save some money by doing that. And at the end of the day, because I was hourly and tracking every single half an hour that I was spending on their account, they were getting billed actually quite a bit more than they were wanting to pay. So when I said, my retainer is $5,000 a month, we're going to move forward that way. That's how I prefer to move forward. They'd say, well, can you break that down into an hourly rate? You want to do that? Great, cool. I did. And then at the end of the month, I would end up billing them $7,000 or $10,000 because I was going way over and I was tracking everything that I was doing in the way that was in my contract. And so instead of them paying less and paying me that $5,000 retainer fee, it was something that kind of blew them out of their budget. And at the end of the day, a lot of my clients really had wished that they had just signed up for the monthly retainer. Another thing that happens when you pay for hourly help is that a lot of the time, if we're working hourly for you, we kind of have a cap, right? So if you say, I can only afford to hire you for 10 hours a week at your hourly rate, at that 10-hour a week mark, we have to put our pencils down. So if we needed 12 hours or 15 hours to get through all of your fit comments, communicate with your factory, make sure that all of the correspondence is going well, we had to put our pencils down at 10 hours, and then a lot of things were getting delayed. So we were running into a lot of issues with projects being delivered on time. Whereas when you hire someone on a monthly retainer, a lot of that can be a lot more flexible. So we can use 15 hours this week, make sure that we're on time and we're getting everything done that we need to. Chances are next week, maybe I only need 8 hours because I got so much done the week before. And so that ends up working out really well. So again, you're going to see like a range here. And I will say there are a lot of fashion freelancers out there right now who are getting trained in building tech packs, running some fittings, understanding how to source fabrics, how to do some of the basics in the apparel industry. And I think that that's wonderful because having a career in this amazing industry is fantastic. I obviously wouldn't suggest anything else. I love my job. But what they're bringing to the table for you is not a huge background of knowledge. And so they're coming to you from a program that maybe they went and learned online for a couple of months, maybe a year. They know the basics and they might be very talented and they might be good at what they do, but they don't have decades of mistakes, decades of learnings, decades of different roles, decades of learning how to lead, decades of management, decades of understanding what's happening inside billion-dollar apparel brand walls to bring to you and to bring to your team. So if you think about what I've been talking about with timeline and you need 9 to 12 months to be able to develop your apparel line and you're putting that forward into, a monthly retainer with a high-end consultant who can really take care of things for you, they have the background that you need to be able to make sure everything goes off without a hitch. You're looking at potentially $45,000 as the best cost for you right there. So we're going to start with that, right? $45,000 right off the bat is minimum of what you would need to save to be able to hire someone to really come in and handle all of the apparel development work for you. Are you frustrated by feeling like an outsider in your own industry? You're not alone. I spent years feeling the same way. Are you tired of endless research and you can only learn this stuff by getting a job in fashion advice? Me too. That's why I created the Business of Apparel online course. My years of insider knowledge condensed into video tutorials, demos, and downloads. Learn at your own pace, no fluff. Just key topics like building target profiles and mastering financials. This information is genuinely unavailable anywhere else. Grow your brand, become an apparel industry aficionado, and unlock millions in potential revenue. The value? Over $50,000 with millions potential for your brand. Don't miss out. Sign up for the Business of Apparel online course today at thebusinessofapparel.com/course. Now, there are ways that you can work with a lot of these brands on a la carte services. So I'm going to break that down for you here too. So a budget review with a pro, like building out that first line plan, looking at your 10-year business plan. What are your plans? How much money do you have up front to spend? How can we break that out into what you're going to spend up front for your first purchase order? What do your products need to cost? How many products can you afford to develop right away? How much fabric can you afford to buy? How much inventory can you plan to buy from your manufacturer? All of these elements are going to go into this upfront business plan. And if you're working with someone who understands how to do this, someone who has a product management background, someone who knows line planning, who knows revenue planning for the apparel industry, this is likely going to cost you somewhere around $10,000 to $25,000. I've seen some coaches and mentors out there who are really charging a premium. They will come at you with a ton of information and they will get you so much that you need. And that will cost you around $25,000. And sometimes this is done with just a single strategy day. So you're spending $25,000 for 24 hours with this person. I mean, it ends up being 8 hours to actually sit with a strategy day with someone. And they're going to give you all of the keys. They're going to come back to you after that strategy day with a full plan. You're going to be able to put that plan into place and implement it, but it could cost you as much as that. Now, we run a brand audit situation at unmarkedstreet where we will do a brand audit for you similarly. Ours costs $10,000. So that is something that you could come to us for if you're interested in that. And we will be able to help you understand what you would need to do in the way of your 10-year business plan. We've also been working on some shorter 3 or 5 year business plans. And then we've been kind of negotiating what those costs need to look like depending on your budget. So that is something that I would recommend that you do right up front if you are not going to hire a high-end consultant on a monthly retainer to come in and help you. The next thing that you're going to want to do is build out your tech packs. So most likely, I'm going to bet that if you come out of your professional brand audit or your professional business plan with this person, you're going to find that you're probably only going to be able to develop 2 products. So I'm going to use 2 products throughout the rest of this example. So the first thing you need to do is build tech packs. So to work with a professional manufacturer or a factory, especially overseas, you need to have a professional tech pack. It is your contract with the factory. Without it, you have no protection. They can essentially make whatever they want for you, and you have no repercussions to come back to them and say, no, this was in writing. I had this in my tech pack. That is my contract. This is what I requested of you. Without a tech pack, you can't do that. And so if you get garments that don't fit well, they don't measure well, they don't have the stitching that you want, they don't have the details that you want, it's because you didn't have it in writing and you didn't have it in a professional tech pack. So you need to have these documents. It will cost you probably around $1,000 per tech pack. So now we're looking at $2,000 to add to your $10,000 to $25,000 brand audit that you did up front. You're going to then need to go through proto fittings. If you're hiring someone who's an expert at it, you can probably get through 2 rounds of proto fittings before you can move on to your size set round. So 2 rounds of proto fittings for 2 garments is probably going to cost you around $4,000. Now, we at Unmarked Street, we will bundle these. Our tech packs and our proto fitting packages come to about $1,000, and then we'll give you a bundle discount. So we build tech packs, and we will also run prototype fittings for you for $850. So you can save a little bit of money there by kind of bundling all of that work together. What I mean by bundling is we'll also just come to you and say, if you just need a text sketch, we'll do a single text sketch for you, and that costs $150. Do you need a grade rule implemented for your tech pack? Cool. We'll build that for you. It only costs $200. I don't remember exactly all of our a la carte pricing right off the top of my head. But once we bundle all of that together, the cost comes out to about $1,000, which is kind of industry standard. And then we give you a discount on top of that to do all of it at one time instead of doing all of the individual pieces and parts. So proto fittings, so now you're adding $4,000. And then you want to move into size set fittings where you need to have a grade rule and you need to make sure that your body size chart that you're going to list your apparel online with is matching what you're going to do with your grade rule. Now, I've talked about this a lot in the past. Your grade rule is not the same as your body size chart. The ratios are not the same. If you are working with a great apparel technical designer out there, they are going to suggest what is essentially a non-linear grade rule. So from small to extra small is going to be a smaller jump in the rule than it would be from extra large to double extra large, because that is how bodies and garments work. When we look at that from a perspective of how bodies need to fit in the garments properly, and it needs to be comfortable on your body, especially when you're moving or you're doing anything in motion, that is the key to developing a great grade rule. Your body size chart will be a little bit more standard. Typically, you will see a body size chart that is linear. And so every other size is going to be, 2 inches apart or something like that. So these are the differences. If you can bring in a pro to do all of that work for you, you're looking at your size set fittings, a grade rule, and your body size chart is probably going to be about $2,000. And then you're going to want everything to come back to you in pre-production samples. So your approvals are going to cost about another $1,000. And then we're going to start getting into production processes and production costs. So let's break down some production yardage here. So let's say you are working with a factory who's only doing CMT for you. They're quoting you a cost that's cut, make, sew only. They're going to cut the fabric for you. They're going to make your garments. They're going to sew your garments. Maybe they'll package them up for you and they'll include that in the labor cost. But they are not buying your fabrics for you. They are not buying your trims for you. They are not buying the hang tags for you. They're not buying the poly bags for you. They are only charging you for the cost of their labor, essentially. And so at the end of the day, you have to buy all of those pieces and parts. Now, I am going to make this as simple as possible because I'm trying to give you basically the lowest cost that you could make. So let's say that you are just making a basic t-shirt. There are no trims on it, which is not really something that would happen. You would at least need to have labels and packaging. But we're just going to go super basic here. So your production yardage, let's say that it's $5 a yard to have fabric that you have lab dipped yourself. It's a color that you want. It's as soft as you want it. It's as sustainable as you want it. It's got a makeup. Maybe you don't want to use polyester. You want to use organic cotton, or you want to use linen, or you want to use hemp, something like that that's super sustainable and organic. If that is important to you, your fabric costs are going to be a little bit higher. So we're going to use $5 as an average here. If you're using super sustainable fabrics, that is actually probably really low. If you're looking for something super cheap, that's maybe a little bit high, but especially if you're buying small batches of maybe only 150 to 300 yards of something, you are probably going to have a higher cost on that because you're not making a bunch of it. So we're going to say $5 a yard. We're going to say that you're buying 150 yards per garment. Maybe your factory has given you 150 MOQ, which is super, super generous. They're willing to only make 150 pieces of each of those two styles for you. So let's say you're using a yard per garment. That's going to be $1,500 just for fabric alone. And then we're going to talk about what it costs to ship, pay for customs fees, pays for tariffs, pay for duty fees, and all of that on that fabric to get it to your factory. And I am rounding way down for this to say that's going to be another $500. Your production then CMT. So let's say you are getting a quote from that factory of $10 per unit to only make 300 units. So you're making 150 of style number 1, you're making 150 of style number 2, so you've got 300 garments. We're going to average your CMT price at about $10 per garment. That's another $3,000. So once we've added all of those things together, we've gotten a $10,000 budget review. We've got our plan on paper. We did tech packs. We did proto fittings, size set fittings. We got grade rules. We got a body size chart. We ordered our production yardage. We approved everything. We paid for all of the shipping. We paid for all of the production. When all of that gets added up, it comes out to $25,000. That's a minimum. So when we're talking about that $25,000 versus the $45,000 we were talking about to hire a pro to do it all for you, is it worth to you the extra $20,000 to have someone come in and take it off of your plate? You don't have to worry about doing any of this yourself. The thing with a la carte is that a lot of times freelancers will come in and they will build that tech pack for you. They'll run your fitting for you. They might even write comments for you, but it is 100% up to you to communicate with your manufacturer. Very few freelancers out there will actually do the communication portion with you. And if they do the communication portion with you, they are likely asking for a monthly retainer, or again, they are asking for an hourly rate for their time that's going to take to do all of that. So at the end of the day, you end up paying either quite a bit more to have them communicate with the factory, or you are taking on that work. And if you're not an expert in communicating with factories, especially factories overseas who have English or your native language probably not as their first language, it can be really tricky to understand exactly how to handle all of it. So let's say you've gone super basic. You've decided to handle all of the factory communication. You've done everything a la carte. You have spent $25,000 to get to the point where you now have production in hand. I'm going to recommend to you that you make sure that you can sell your garments so that when you sell every single last garment, you have made in gross revenue about $40,000. So that is going to equal a very healthy profit for you. And what that will then do is allow you to put $15,000 of profit. So you spent $25,000, you made $40,000. You put all of that back into your business. So you basically replenished the $25,000. Maybe you went out and got a business loan. So now you've paid back your business loan, you've paid back that $25,000, and you have $15,000 of profit in hand. That is going to go toward your next purchase order. You are not going to develop anything else new. You will not have the money for it. You are only going to then purchase what is next. So this is going to be your next inventory piece. And when it comes in, if you maintain a healthy margin, you'll be able to buy a little bit more next time. So you can see how the profits of something even small can really help propel your own brand forward. However, it doesn't really give you the opportunity to build a lot of additional products. And it also doesn't give you access to the kinds of people who can come in and help you grow your brand and help you really create quality apparel. So that's why when we as high-end consultants come out and say, we really recommend that you stash away about $150,000 as a minimum before you start developing your apparel line, it's so that you can afford a year or more of handling a retainer with a high-end consultant who can get you the product that you need at a quality that is going to sell and bring you customers for life. It is also going to help you buy all of those fabrics that you need. It is going to help you buy a larger MOQ with a factory who will be willing to work with you a little bit better. They will be willing to lower your costs so that you can make a better profit. If you definitely start with a higher MOQ, buy more inventory, spending more upfront. And it is also going to help you call cover all of those different additional fees. So tariffs, duties, customs, shipping, all of that is going to add up a lot faster than you think. It is one of the bigger complaints that I get from my clients. I was planning for everything to cost this much, but now I'm also getting this bill from UPS and I'm getting this bill from the customs team at the US Treasury. Like, how do I also pay all of this? So if you're not planning for all of that up front, it could be detrimental to your budget. So a few numbers that I wanted to throw out to you today. A lot of this can sound really daunting when we're talking about raising this kind of money. I know it's really big numbers, but at the end of the day, if you are in it to win it and you want to build an apparel line that is going to be long-term financial gain for you in years to come, this is the best way to start. And this is what we're starting to recommend as high-end apparel consultants in the space. So if you have any questions, you can always comment on the episode below. I would love to hear from you. You can also go to thebusinessofapparel.com. Sign up for our weekly newsletter to get all of this content for free that we are sharing. And you can definitely reach me there too. You're also able to reach out to us at hello@unmarkedstreet.com anytime, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. See you next week. Thank you so much for listening to the Business of Apparel podcast. I would so appreciate hearing your thoughts on the show. And if you know someone who could benefit from it, please share it with them. My biggest desire is to help other apparel professionals understand the nuances of our industry so we can all work toward making better product for a better world. If you would like to connect further, I'd love to invite you to send me a message through my website, thebusinessofapparel.com, where I do weekly trainings through my YouTube video channel, a weekly newsletter, blog articles, and so many more resources to help you start and scale a profitable apparel brand. This podcast is produced by Box 7 Media, who I cannot speak highly enough of. If you're looking to start your own podcast, you can reach out to Jeremy at Box 7 Media on LinkedIn anytime.